Hello. Come on, we practiced this the other day. Hello. Hello. We're going to talk about some things today. First, do no harm. Tech needs to adopt a Hippocratic oath. I am Kim Crayton, the mighty. Yes. I'm not used to this because usually I have theme music that I come up to because everybody needs theme music, you know? You just feel like, And so you can tweet at Kim Crayton1 and you can use the hashtag cause a scene because there are people on the internet waiting to hear from you. Trigger warning. White people. You're gonna be uncomfortable. Get used to it. I walk around like this every single day. It's very damn uncomfortable. So you get to choose, as Peter said, whether you will engage or not, whether you will get out of your comfort zone or not. I don't. Every day I have to figure out how to be safe, how to be effective, and how not to slap some of y'all. So that's the trigger warning. And I'm gonna say this because it always happens. Peter will undoubtedly get someone who says, I broke the code of conduct. No, just because you don't like what I say doesn't mean I don't have a right to say it. And that's been the problem. So I am an educator by trade. And so I like to define terms because I don't like to wait till you get to the middle of something and then you can tell when I had students and that little dim light goes, I was like, oh crap, they don't understand what I'm talking about. So I like to define terms right up front. So we're gonna talk about privilege. Privilege is simply access. That's it. People think it's such a loaded word. It's just access. So who's ever seen this on National Geographic or whatever, the macaques, raise your hand if you've seen this picture. Exactly, that's why I use it, because I'm sure it wasn't until I saw a recent David Attenborough special that I understood that this is not, as many things in the world aren't what they seem. When you've probably seen them, they wanted to tell you what a beautiful story this was and how warm they are, but this is all about privilege, because as you see, there is a family inside the water, and you see this little fella here? He's just like, yeah, can I get in? No. This is a matriarchal family who's allowed to get in this water. So a female and her offspring are the only ones that are allowed to get into these hot springs. There are males on the outside that are protecting the other parts of the community who are out there freezing their behinds off from getting inside in the hopes that they can mate and maybe get inside. So I like to tell that story because we have this idea, because that's how the nature shows has presented this as this great story. But there's always something behind the story. And the story behind the story is, this is not great for everybody else. A lot of these monkeys are just praying it'll come April so they don't freeze. Our next term is underrepresented. It's just simply about numbers. Nothing complicated about that. Underrepresented is about numbers, right? We agree on that? Well, if you don't, it doesn't matter. I'm going to keep going. Marginalized is about treatment. And I have to add this caveat because it always happens that someone, when I make my next statement, will say, but I. Marginalized is not about the treatment of individuals. It is the treatment, the systematic, institutionalized mistreatment of groups of people. So, in tech, women are underrepresented. Very few white women are also marginalized. I want to make sure we understand this. Because what happens with white women is they want to tell me their story about how they were harassed or whatever. I don't care. This is not what this definition is about. It's not saying that your experience did not happen. It's not saying that your experience was not horrific and traumatizing. What it's saying is you're talking about you. When I talk about marginalized, I'm talking about groups like me. Diversity, simply about variety. That's it. Nothing complicated about that. It's about variety. And I use this example. Do they have Crayola here in the UK? Okay, all right, because okay. So you can get a box of 4 Crayola crayons, and if you're really creative, you can do something with that, right? But if you got that 64 box of crayons, boy, you can make something happen, boy, even the worst artists. This reminds me of that game we played last night, and we kept complaining we only had 2 colors. I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this with only 2 colors. It limits you. So it's about variety. When you have more of something, you usually can be more creative. I don't have to use my green and my blue and I have an undergraduate in interior design. It's like, wait a minute, what am I doing? My blue and my red to make purple. I have several shades of purple in this box, okay? Okay, I don't know what just happened, but we're gonna keep, there we go, until I figure this out. Inclusion is simply about experience. That's all it is. It's about someone's experience. It is about how I experience something. I want to make that clear. You don't get to tell me that your environment, your community, your organization is inclusive. I tell you based on my experience if your environment is inclusive. This is where we're having a problem, because privilege, who has access, think they get to make up all the rules. No longer. You don't tell me if I'm included or not. I tell you. And this is one of the issues, because you will say, oh, well, we hired women, we hired people of color, we hired this, that, and other, but they keep leaving because my experience has not been inclusive. That's why I'm leaving. You have a crap environment, and I'm not going to stay. Well, I'll be doggone. Let's see. Yep. Thank you. All right, so inclusion is not about equality. Inclusion is not about quotas. It is about my experience. And this is where I want to, so Peter, when he was speaking, was about equality. It is not. I need, for us to be equal, I need for every white man in here to stop working, take a nap, and don't move for a while. And when you get up, start crawling for us to ever be equal. You have started this race so far ahead of me that there is no way that if we go at the same pace, I will ever catch up to you. So I'm not talking about equality. Equality is not going to work here. This is also an issue I have with codes of conduct. Particularly, who saw the hoopla of the O'Reilly Code of Conduct issue that happened last week, and people pulling out of, raise your hands high. There you go. All right. So Tim O'Reilly, so there is this, for those who don't know, O'Reilly, somebody, no one's claiming this, but somebody after the 2016 election slid 2 words into their code of conduct of protected groups, and it was political affiliation. I spoke at an O'Reilly conference, and I spoke at Fluent, but I didn't have to sign. What happened is, I don't know how it got flagged, but with this OSCON group, they sent out something for the speakers to sign that says they agreed with the code of conduct. And because I don't have this perspective, several transgender individuals saw this. And it raised a red flag for them. Because what it was saying is, and I don't like to go wade into the political waters, but what it was saying is that everybody's speech is the same, is equal. Well, I don't believe hate speech gets to be equal to my speech. And that was a problem. Yeah, you can clap. And this is why Twitter is failing at helping keep marginalized individuals safe, This is how Facebook is failing at helping keep us safe, because everybody wants to be equal. You've heard the term now, civil, right? Oh my God, everybody wants to be civil. Well, let me explain to you what civility means to a black woman who grew up in the South. Civility is optional for white people. I'm just gonna be honest. Y'all will jump the line. Y'all will not say thank you. You are rude as hell. But for a marginalized individual, it is our expected behavior. When we step outside that line, we're all kinds of things. Because what civility does for us, has done for you, it helps you manage our behavior, because we manage our own behavior by it. Take turns, all those things I grew up to believe or how people act, white people make I don't have to do that. It could be conscious or unconscious choice, but that's your privilege. So you can screw civility. I'm not being civil anymore. So when you say, Tim O'Reilly, he did this LinkedIn response. He said he took it out. Again, he doesn't know how I got in there. Like some random person just threw these two words in there. And that wasn't enough, because what it did again say then, he took those words out, but it still in its essence says that hate speech is equal to the voices of marginalized individuals. And I'm saying that to say, and it goes back to equality, marginalized people will never feel safe in your spaces, your organizations, your events, and your communities until you prioritize our safety. So if you cannot do that, don't expect us to stay there, be there and stay there. Because I'm going to tell you, when I walk into a room like this, raise your hand if you are a black person. Raise your hand. I see 1, 2, 5 of us, 6 of us in the damn room. Okay. When you walk into a room and you see all these white people, we start playing Where's the Negro? Like, okay, I see one right there, one right there. We start looking for black people. Because you know why? We need to feel safe. We don't feel safe in groups of white people. You've taught us that our safety means absolutely nothing to you. So when I go into that space, I need to go see this young lady. And we're going to give each other that smile, like, I got you. Yeah, I got you. In case something pop off, I got you. Yeah, And then once you see something pop off, we all there. And then we're a gang. Do you see how that turns against us? We're trying to be safe and protect each other because there's only a few of us here, but now we're being uncivil and we're now a gang. So this is just a modern version of the Hippocratic Oath. And I'm not going to read this to you. But basically, the first one is respect the hard-won scientific gains that have happened. You know, you want to pass on that knowledge to the next person, to the next physician. You want to apply that for the benefit of the sick. And you want to be careful of the traps of avoiding, over-treatment and therapeutic, and I keep forgetting how to pronounce it. Anybody can pronounce that last word on that second? Nihilism, yes. I keep wanting to say something else, and it just whatever. So that's the balance. You have to remember that medicine is a science, and so there is an art as well as a science. So there's warmth and sympathy, and so and that outweighs the surgeon's knife and the druggist and the chemist's drugs. This will all make sense to you in a moment. You're not ashamed to say, I don't know. We have a big problem with that in this space. And when we're testing and making mistakes all the time, we have to respect people's privacy. That's just funny. And we have to not play God. We must remember not to treat a fever or cancerous growth, that we're dealing with a human being. And CJ talked about this. The human aspect is the hardest. I commend you for what you do for a living, but let's be real, you code. People learn how to do that. And this is one of the issues I have in tech, because we call your skills technical and my skills non-technical and soft skills. Most of you don't have my skills, and they're hard, and you could never deal with what I have to deal with on a daily basis. So we need to use the terminology correctly. You have technology skills. I have human-centric skills, but they're both technical. We need to prevent disease. It's not about just treatment, it's about prevention. We need to understand that we're members of society. That we're not just out there lone wolves. As physicians, we are a part of a community, and that community comes to us when they're ill or need help. And we do not violate this oath, and if we do not violate this oath, we will have great lives. We will have communities that thrive. We will have friends and colleagues who appreciate and respect us. These are the things that happen when you're talking about the Hippocratic oath. So what happens when a doctor violates these things? Malpractice, right? Liability. That's why they have insurance. If they're not doing these things, in particular if they're intentionally going against this oath, there's a liability issue there. So this is what I've been talking about lately. Who follows me on Twitter? Raise your hand. Oh, not enough of you white people. Come on. Thank you. Y'all need to get it together. Get it together, because we're not going to move this one at a time. We need to come together as a group, because the voices, and it's you in your head that says, I'm too uncomfortable to deal with this, you're standing in the way. You're a bottleneck, and I need you to either work with me or get the hell out of my way, because I'm coming through. So lack of inclusion is about risk management, or it's a malpractice issue. And this is the things I've been talking about. It is not about a nice to have, oh, it just warms my heart, this is so great, or a moral imperative. No, if you're running a business, this is about a risk management issue. And these things, what I'm about to show you, that's what, 9 days? From the 10th through the 18th? And I don't even look at all the news. I just see stuff that comes through my Twitter feed. What I'm about to show you is just 9 days of potential malpractice. So this is what risk management is. And I'm going to talk about this, a caveat. A product or service is not a business. It's a product or service. And the reason most of us have gotten into trouble is because you think you have businesses and you don't. You don't know how to measure anything. You don't know what information to get. You don't know how to evaluate it. Any that you have no processes, procedures, or policies in place that will help you scale, evolve, or recover. Because everybody's following the lean canvas model. Everybody's thinking about when they want to start this thing, oh, I want an IPO, whatever. Nobody's thinking about, how are we going to hire people? How are we going to evaluate people? Do we have any core values or people which will guide our decisions of who we will work with, who we won't work with? No one's thinking about that. Because what's happening is many of these white guys are starting these projects in college, in these frat houses, and then they come over here and nothing's changed about their behavior, still acting like they're frat boys. We have to stop that. That's a risk management issue. Microsoft president calls for government rules on facial recognition. And if you can see that last, and we've been saying this, but nobody's been listening to people of color when we tell you all data is biased. All data flows through a human lens, which means all data is biased, which means all of your algorithms are biased. and this is one of the issues I have with Stack Overflow, is because based on their survey, 92% of the people who completed the survey are white males between the ages of 18 and 34. You need to stop acting like that is the global developer community, because it is not. That is just the group of people who have the time and energy and feel safe enough to participate on that platform. The average person, particularly if they're underrepresented and marginalized, does not engage on Stack Overflow at all. They're not safe. So what they're doing is going and copying and pasting code that is biased. And I have a real issue, because now we're talking about AI, machine learning, and deep learning. And no one's checking this. But this is right here, black people have been telling y'all can't do this. So when you people talking about crime statistics, let me give you a little background. I'm a researcher. If you know anything about data, should only include actual crimes that take place. What we actually have are policing statistics where people are making assumptions based on crimes of what might happen. That's not the same thing. So and I'm being very specific here, because I need you to go to your white friends, because I know you have them. If it's not you sitting in this room, who have these conversations and thinking, well, why wouldn't they call the police? Y'all use the police like it's customer service. If we have a drunk uncle who's causing a ruckus, we're not going to call the police, because he might end up dead. We just need him to calm down. So we're going to do whatever we need to keep him safe and out of everybody's hair until he sobers up. Oh, this fella. So I don't care what you believe, where you fall. He was wrong. Don't care about his beliefs. I have nothing to give. Everybody has a right to an opinion. What he did not have a right to do was create this document on work property using work stuff. Now that was stupid. And distributing it through his business and thought he was covered. No, you weren't. You broke their code of conduct. But what he is doing, or what he has done, is take emails and stuff within the company, redacted the people who believe in what he's saying, their names, and publicly displaying or publishing people who were against him, and they're being harassed. They're being threatened. That's a risk management issue. Ban Twitter streamers, defend slurs. Don't know how you can defend calling somebody a nigga. I just don't. I mean, what is in that game that warrants that? Calling somebody a fag. What in the game warrants that? Twitch has a big issue right now, and they're actually looking for someone to, they have that job. Everybody has that job. You know the job. The inclusion and diversity person. Everybody has that job. If your organization is not prepared for that person, which means they will have autonomy, resources, and authority, you're setting somebody up for a failure. You cannot just slap a name on a title on something and think that's going to change your culture. This person's going to have a lot on their hands to deal with. Facebook says it's beginning to remove misinformation that leads to violence. They're beginning to remove misinformation that leads to violence. And I see smiles and snickers like, oh my God. But white people, this has been happening to us forever. All it takes is a bot to create 500 bots of themselves, or somebody who controls 500 bots, and they get pissed at me because I put whiteness or privilege in all caps. Those 500 bots report me and my account is shut down. Or those 500 bots come after me, and all it takes is some rando from somewhere to see that, not knowing it's a bot, and then all hell breaks loose. but they're just beginning to remove stuff that we told them was harmful. Yeah, this right here. It's not even the Russia part to me. If anybody's seen the interviews with the researcher who initially started this, who says, oh, exactly, oh, I'm not the only one. They're singling me out. There were thousands of people doing this. We just assumed that no one would care that their personal information would care. So you're telling me some grandmother in what the? Thank you, what she said. And their family, her family has moved to the U.S., and this is her only way to see her grandkids through Facebook or stay connected. You're telling me she does not care that you share her personal information? She's probably only on Facebook because of this. Or, I tweeted about this morning. With all I guess the UK, the EU has this, I guess better, well, definitely better than we do. So we got the GD, whatever those letters, all those emails. But then when I look at LinkedIn, why is everything opt-in automatically? So you've given out all my information before I even got to see what I didn't want you to have. We're still acting like we know best for other people. Yeah, Uber. So this person has these EOC complaints against him. And sexism, sexual harassment, he's a leader. So culture comes from leadership. This is one reason I don't really like all of these inclusion people. And I really don't like individuals working on these issues in their organizations, because without leadership explicitly communicating that they have your back, all you're going to do is wear yourselves out. You're not going to get anywhere. You're going to get burnt out. And then it's going to be like, well, we told you, or no, it's not. Culture comes from the top. So when I consult, when I'm working with a company, unless the leadership is there, you're wasting my time. I don't care how much you're paying me. Because first of all, I don't, and people who follow me know, don't talk for me. I want to communicate directly to that organizational leader what their problems are. Don't do it secondhand. Whoever played that game, telephone, by the time it gets back around, it's something totally different. But this is their culture. Facebook admits it's doing a bad job with blacks and Hispanics. But the thing is, this was funny in this. They blamed the black person that they hired to do this and said she was not technical enough. That was her issue. So not only did you give her a job and you did support her, but now you blame her for not being effective. So we just get it coming and going. You know, it's never the white man's fault for any of this. You created a system that did not include me. That's what I really want to talk about right in this moment. So I'm a black woman from the South in the United States. Just like here, but very specifically United States. There's a system that was created that never intended to include me. This is why equality will not work. I was considered 3/5 of a person. I was property. If I had kids, you could sell them off. I was a non-entity. The fact that I'm pursuing a doctorate degree, none of those people thought, us? What? They're ignorant. And some of you, and I'm going to say it, and some of the people you know still believe that. Still believe that I'm subhuman. And this is where this stuff comes from. So this person was an expert as a crisis. He made his money as a crisis management expert. But he screwed up. Big time. He went to a charity and treated it a charity. These people were helping other people. and treated as if it was the new startup, and they had to growth at no cost or their valuation was going to come down. He created a hostile environment for years. But this is what he got paid for. And I'm going to speak to this, because we talk about this a lot on Twitter. Why, as a black woman, because I used to put my credentials in my slides, and then I took them out because I'm sick of trying to prove myself to whiteness. I know what I know. I have the skills that I have, and I've created enough content that if you want to know who I am, you can find it. But it dawned on me when I was speaking at Selenium Conf and I had my credentials in, and two white guys just randomly came, I can't believe you have to do that. No one ever, I don't even have a college degree. No one ever asked me anything. I just show up and say I can do it, and people believe me. I can show up with every diploma tattooed on my body, and somebody will still say I'm not qualified. And you want to know why we're angry? I think we have very good reason to be angry. Because nothing we do is good enough for you. If we're civil, there's a problem. If we're uncivil, there's a problem. We're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. At this point, I don't. Uber. So this guy decides that they had a commercial with some mixed race people, and he, first of all, got the black folks mixed up together. He was saying, why do you have this? And this makes no sense. They're not mixed race families. I don't understand this. This is stupid. Because he doesn't have that perspective. Another tweet that I saw recently, and this is true, that many people, many people who follow me or many people who follow people of color on Twitter, let's be honest, this is the first time many of you ever actively engage with people of color. They're not in your circles at all. So how can you create products and services for us? You know nothing about our lives. So this is another person, he just didn't, and this was just one incident. So he had to go. This is my favorite. Her job, this white woman here, her job was head of human resources. Her job was to explicitly deal with these issues. And what did she do? She further discriminated against people. So it's not about, and you continue to hire people in these roles who don't know what they're doing. This is the head of HR who's actively discriminating against people. Where do you go if you're a person who's being discriminated against? If you're a person from a marginalized or underrepresented group? If the head of HR is doing this, where do you go? So effectively doing business in the information age requires a diversity of perspectives in order to create products and services for a global market. This is not what's a hardware store here? Who? B&Q. Okay, so this is not your local B&Q that was back in the day that everybody who went there looked like the owners. We're creating stuff that people don't look like you. They don't look like you. And you have no idea what you're doing about how to create experiences for them that they feel welcome, safe, and inclusive. So what you're actually doing is leaving money on the table. One example of this is someone tweeted, I really wish clothing sites would not automatically, when I go on the site, make me choose between male and female. She's non-binary. She wears whatever clothes she feels like wearing. So automatically, you self-selected that this individual will not be buying male clothes because you've made this person choose female clothes because you don't have that perspective. So here are some barriers to inclusion and diversity in tech. And so we're going to define some more terms. And this is where it's really going to get uncomfortable for some folks, but you'll be all right. I walk around, remember, I walk around like this all day. This is your litmus. You don't have to do this. You're good. All right? Words you must stop using now to describe people of color. And I mean now. I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm talking now. One of the things is, which will check your biases or issues, is, again, I'm a researcher. Who in here has done research? Raise your hand. You understand about validity and reliability, right? You need both for your study to be trusted as authority on information. So validity means it just makes sense. And reliability means that somebody can replicate it, right? So it makes sense and someone can replicate it. You need those two things because so much, as I said, we are biased human beings. Stop calling black people, people of color, aggressive. Just because we don't agree with you, I'm not aggressive. I'm asserting my point, just as you have a right to do. Stop calling us intimidating. Too many of us are getting shot and killed because you are intimidated. That's your personal code of conduct. That's your personal stuff, not ours. You're adults. I'm responsible for my own emotional growth, and so are you. Look at that definition. If I have not physically done anything to you, frightened, I'm not being intimidating. Defensive. I'm committed. I'm not going to back down just because you have a different opinion. I've seen that so much. Well, I told you, I gave you a different, okay, that's great. I don't have to take it. You can have all the opinions and whatever you want to. But that's a part of privilege. I see that a lot. When I post something, particularly when I'm talking about describing what racism is, oh my Lord, everybody wants to, now there's research. I mean, I can show them tons and tons, but they will have a different opinion. And because their opinion is different, because they're white, I'm supposed to just abdicate and say, yes, sir? Not happening. Emotional. Yeah, we get emotional sometimes and we shed a tear, but it's usually out of frustration because we're sick of you telling us what we're saying, our experiences aren't valid. We're sick of you saying that what I've experienced is, nope, because I did. And I'm going to give you tell you something here that some people get offended by. I don't care. Somebody called me an anti-Semite. Because they tried. First of all, don't ever slide into my DMs when I'm having a public conversation. Just a warning. You will get your feelings hurt. Secondly, do not compare the Holocaust to slavery. Both were traumatic, unfortunate, painful events that do not need to be compared. My Jewish friends, you are white. Unless you self-identify as being Jewish, no one knows. Do not compare that because the Holocaust, and I am I am a history buff, and I am so engrossed in the 5 personalities that started World War II. So I would not tell you, I'm not a Holocaust denier or any of that, but I'm going to tell you because you have white privilege, you do not have the same experiences I have from slavery today. I'm still dealing with the consequences of slavery in 2018. They're not the same. Angry. No, I'm just determined. When I say on my Twitter, and it's always in caps, people think I'm yelling. I don't use that as a thing. I don't need to yell. I don't even get upset on Twitter. But when I see something, like I saw a thing yesterday, there were a group of, I think they were Muslim descent, Indian, or I don't know exactly what because they never said in the article, but they were a group of kids, and some white young boy who was drunk with his girlfriend came and started harassing them, said he had he had a knife and all this other stuff. The police were called on this, the girlfriend called the police, and then they left. Bystanders were there to explain to the police what happened. Why are there bystanders? Why did no one intervene in this situation, either to help these young boys or to call the police themselves? Yeah, we have a right to be angry. These kids were just out playing. We're not overreacting. We're justified. Every day, every single day, something happens. And I'm going to tell you for those people who hate Trump, I don't I don't have opinion about him, but what I can say is I appreciate that he's president for this reason only. Until this time, because we had a black president for 8 years. There was no racism. Oh, didn't we deal with that in the 60s? What are you talking about? You're being sensitive. What's the problem? Why are you talking about this? What this did in 2 years, it hasn't even been 2 years yet, was everybody, because he says whatever he says, everybody's come out the woodwork. We've pulled the covers off this. People are just saying all kinds of stuff that they wouldn't have said before because now white people feel very comfortable. So we're not overreacting. We've been telling you this has been going on. You haven't been listening. We make assumptions. And an assumption is an idea or a belief that has no proof. Again, when you're talking about validity and reliability, an assumption is the beginnings of a problem. But we all have assumptions. But you need to use reliability and validity to test those assumptions. Again, we all have biases. I hate unconscious bias training. Because what you do is make people who don't want to be there go to something that's not effective anyway. So yeah, people are frustrated and pissed. They don't want to be there. Are you going to think you're going to get somebody who's a racist or a bigot to change their mind from a 3-hour workshop? You're wasting resources and you're wasting people's time. And what you're actually doing is making marginalized individuals unsafe in these environments. Racism. Many of you are very uncomfortable talking about this. That's why I want to put this out here, because white people, we need to talk about racism. We need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So when someone calls me a racist, they are incorrect. Although the Webster's or the dictionary version of racism talks about just prejudice, racism has to be race prejudice plus a system that upholds racism or backs up that race prejudice. I am not a member of that system. I am not a privileged individual when it comes to race. I have many privileges, but that's not one of them. So I am not a racist. I could be prejudiced, I could be hateful, and I could discriminate, but that's not what I do. And I'm saying this, and I'm going to stop right here because this is really the only time I say this. I don't hate white people. Actually, if anybody follows me, know that I have a League of White Men. And the League of White Men is necessary because as a person of color, I don't have access. But there are a lot of white men who follow me and believe what I say who have a lot of access. And I'm going to tap into it. I'm going to use every bit of the access I can to move my movement and my message forward. Why am I expected to recreate the wheel when people already done this? That makes no sense to me. That would be inefficient and ineffective, and that's something I'm not. So yeah, if I want to ask a question or if I want to tap into a network, I'm going to ask somebody, white, hey, how do you do this? This is where I learned so much about privilege when people would say, Kim, That's just not how my experience. And I'm like, oh, we're really having a different experience. That just really blew my mind. Because we're taught that we're all having the same, that we're the U.S. melting pot. And I don't call it American because that already is discriminatory because you act like there's no North, South, and Central America. But we're taught that everybody's having the same experience, and we're not. And you need to talk about this. Simple ways to determine if something is racist. And this is from the book. I would ask all of you to read the book, So You Want to Talk About Race. It's a simple read, but even if it weren't, you need to read it. And there's another document in here that's not in here, and I forgot to put it in. You need to read. It's a dense 3-page document called White Fragility. So if you send me a DM, I will send you that document, and I will try to repost it today. But you need to read this book and this research on white fragility. It's race if a person of color tells you it's race, about race. Don't argue with us. That's a problem. I don't need to prove. You always want proof. Show me, document. I ain't got to go through all that. It's racial if I say it's racial. It's about race if it disproportionately or differently affects people of color. And it's about race if it fits a broader pattern of events. So not just me, but if you see these things happening over, so all these people calling the cops on people of color, that's about race. It's not about these people not having permits or all these other things. There's a pattern. This young lady is no longer with Uber, and we know why. She was put into a job that they did not prepare her for. But this is what she says. Again, white men and this is why I speak, you are my target audience. I'm going to be honest. People of color are not my target audience because they don't have the privilege. I need people who have the privilege to get to moving. And when you say that you can't find us, that's bull. We need to shift from an information industrial mindset to an information mindset. We live in a knowledge creation business economy. That's how we make our money. That's what happens. We don't make widgets anymore. You need people who can create knowledge that allows you to differentiate and innovate in a competitive marketplace. You cannot do that from one perspective. These are the skills that are needed moving forward, not coding. Arguing about Angular or React, that's a waste of time. What's important to you is how do you make your coding decisions? Angular and React is just a tool. You need to first decide what the problem you're trying to solve and find the right tool to solve it. But these are the skills you need, and this has nothing to do with coding. These are the skills that I have very well developed. So when these robots, these computers start coding for you, I'll always have a job. You need to develop these skills. Stop creating barriers to entry. Treating all applicants the same is lazy. I'm so sick of Stack Overflow and GitHub being used in hiring situations because it does not give you any information on those skills that we talked about, but also it economically disenfranchises underrepresented and marginalized people who do not actively participate on these platforms because they're dangerous. Now, Stack Overflow came out with a new draft of a code of conduct. I'm very excited about that. But I'm watching to see how they're going to communicate, implement, and enforce it. Whiteboarding, come on, guys. All these tests y'all do, these Google, Facebook tests, that only benefits white dudes who ain't got nothing else to do all day but study for these things. If you have a full-time job, kids, whatever, you ain't got time to be doing all this. You want to tell people, give me an example so I can solve a problem, a real world problem. not some arbitrary algorithm that no one ever uses in the real doggone job anyway. And then making people solve problems that are your real organizational problems is unethical. They need to be paid. If a part of your interview process is to give them some real work, they need to get real pay. And bottom line, stop treating all applicants as if they have the time and the interest of an 18 to 34-year-old white man, because we don't. I could care less about your ping pong table, your beer pong, your draft on tap. You don't need to give me lunch, because I don't want to eat with most of y'all anyway, and I'd rather be at my own house. Just pay me enough so that I can feed myself and provide my own housing. Because what I'm going to do is go to work, do a good job. And it's a bonus if I like any of y'all. But I have a whole community of people outside of this job that I really don't need you. Because you have to prove to me that you're safe for me. I've learned in my time in tech that although I don't hate white people, I don't trust you. You have to prove to me that my safety matters to you. This is what the League of White Men understand. They have to fill out an application. They have to be willing to be uncomfortable so that I can be comfortable. If you're not willing to do that, I have no use for you. I don't need more followers, and I definitely don't need allies. And let me explain that. You're not an ally until somebody who you're trying to help tells you you're an ally. You do not self-identify as an ally, period. And then that can be taken away if you do something stupid. So it's not like it's perpetual. Inclusion is about making changes to a culture that reflects the absorption. So when I come into an organization, it's not about me assimilating to this. The culture needs to change so that my experiences provide a better experience for all. That's the only way you're going to be competitive. If you take my knowledge and I feel safe enough to provide that knowledge, and I'm not just going in there doing the bare minimum, because that's what we're doing. Because we don't feel safe to engage. We have an idea, you steal it. We have an idea, you shut it down. You have an idea, you mansplain it, all these other things. But until I feel safe enough to provide that information, I'm no value to you as an employee. You're just giving me money, which absolutely makes no sense. I'm of no value to you in helping you compete on a global market. Yes, it's uncomfortable for your community to change, but I don't know where this thing about comfort comes from. Change is uncomfortable. But once you get through it, wow, it's amazing. You have something new. Many support the idea of diversity of thought, but very few are capable of doing it. They just don't have the skills. I will be 50 next year. I have an undergraduate in interior design. I have a master's degree in training and development, which means I write curriculums, workshops, all kinds of things. I work with kids and adults in after-school programs, summer camps. I did high school teacher. So nothing you say really bothers me because I done heard it from these kids. I'm not, nothing you can say can like, I'm also special needs certified, which means I understand how to make sure different people with different abilities get to the same place. Maybe not at the same time, but we're going to get there together. And I'm also getting a doctorate in business administration, technology, entrepreneurship. I know how to build tech businesses. Sorry, I don't think anybody else in this space has the same exact experience that I have. And it's not to say anything about you because I don't have your experience. So when we come together, we can create something magical. This is why I don't like competition. Compromise. You have something, let's say you have Skittles here, right? Skittles? Yeah, okay. So people put the Skittles down. Okay, I don't like yellow, I don't like green. So then what's left is some purple stuff that nobody wanted, right? But if you're doing collaboration, you put all the Skittles on the table and you create something together that you could not create by yourself. That's why you need this diversity of thought. Efforts designed to improve inclusion, improve experience traditionally excluded, Efforts designed to improve the experience of traditionally excluded populations is a process. Please stop looking for simple answers to complex solutions. It takes time. That's what I tell Peter all the time. He thinks he's not doing enough. He's doing just fine. He's moving at least. And I hear that all the time. I think I'm going to make a mistake. Move. We all are making mistakes. Think about this. I'm not even just in the United States. Anywhere that there are white people who colonized, we're trying to create something now that was never meant to exist. We're all going to make mistakes. We're making this up. Underrepresented, particularly marginalized individuals were never we were never designed into these systems. So yes, you're going to make mistakes. Own up to it. Don't give excuses and move on. But don't be still, because that's not a good excuse anymore when we're getting killed. I'm going to hold you accountable, and that's what I wanted to say earlier. When something happens, I put in all caps, privilege, you're not doing enough. Because the people who follow me know that I'm going to call you out. Without a thought out process or tested strategy, people get hurt. So at best, it's unwelcoming, but at worst, and this is what's happening, people are harmed, and we have to stop doing this. So technology expertise does not equal human-centered expertise. And this is the thing I want to talk about. Just because you have thousands of followers who follow you about JavaScript, does not mean you're expert and qualified to speak about social justice issues. And that's a problem because your followers see you as this thing, and when you say something, they believe you know what you're talking about. So when I say something, you become a barrier. Step back and lean and give the spotlight to those individuals who know what they're doing. That's what lending your privilege is. If you have thousands of followers, find some people of color who have message that you believe in and start retweeting their stuff so that it gets out. And if you see them get attacked by somebody, you jump in. So money is being, spending the money becomes, just spending the money just becomes a liability. So don't just spend money, because without a strategy, it means absolutely nothing. And get involved. So #CauseAScene has 3 initiatives. I'm doing the conference on Sunday. I'm still looking for marginalized people who want to speak. That's the only people who get to stand on my stage, but everybody's welcome. I do a podcast weekly, and one of in my community just volunteered, so he's now doing the production, because I had no desire to do that. So now I have somebody professional doing the production of this podcast. And #CauseAScene Alliance is because I don't have the bandwidth to help each one of you individually. And I also don't intend to do it for free. So what I'm creating for you or for us is a community where we can all learn together and we can start using strategies. Instead of doing buckshot or shotgun, we're doing laser strategies to help these things. And one of the first things that I'm working on is helping transgender individuals. They're being persecuted in numbers that are ridiculous, particularly women of color. They're being killed, and I'm not exaggerating. They are being slaughtered. Use your privilege for something other than yourself. Thank you.